Welcome to the 2.0 Grandma Podcast, a space created by a grandma for grandmas and all about grandmas. Our mission is clear: to empower and support grandmas as they redefine, realign, and redesign their lives.
Hello.
Hi, Marcia. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Oh, doing really good. Thanks.
Good, good. Thank you for being my guest this afternoon.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. I'm glad we finally figured out how to get connected.
Yes, yes. Now, was I supposed to be on your podcast at one point?
Yes. No, I'm gonna about to just start doing outreach again I took a break.
Okay, yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah, I get it.
I took a break. I'm gonna start doing outreach. I wanna push them out and starting in April. So yes,
Okay, good.
I'll be
Okay.
reaching out to you soon when I'm
Okay, perfect.
got my
No
infrastructure figured out. Yeah.
Yeah, no rush whatsoever. So let me kind of give you a little rundown of how we're going to do this today. It's only about 30 minutes, right? And so what I'll do, I first like to hear about you as a person before I get into your platform.
Okay.
And then, so I know you sent me the bio and all of that. And I'll interject some of the things that you said because I have questions about them. What does that really look like when you say da da da, that sort of thing, right?
Okay.
And then we'll take a little break about 15 minutes in so that we can plug in a commercial or sponsor information. I just heard this weird sound. Oh, it's my thing telling me that we're on Zoom right now. I'm like, what? So anyway, and then we'll end up at the very end. I want you to share all your social media sites and
okay.
and all that information. Okay.
Let me
So
be
even
ready
though
for that.
we've already started recording, we can cut out anything, when we do the edit part of it.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah. Great. No problem.
So that just kind of gives you an overview. And basically, it's a conversation. It's just back and forth from whatever you may say, something that may stimulate a question, vice versa, So we'll just go back and forth and have a little fun while we're learning about each other and what the work that we're doing.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So let me do my little spiel. She adds some music. I don't have to do any music. I'm not going to sing any of that. But
do you sing? Do you normally sing?
No, I do not. I mean, around the house and the shower,
but not on your podcast that you put out into the world. Yeah,
that's funny. But I just wanted you to know what to expect. So break out a song any minute here.
No, I do this. No. I do the same. I've got this guy Brad. I've talked to him a lot. I'll be like, "Oh, sorry, Brad. Please delete that."
Right.
Yeah, I understand.
So, and I admire people that know how to do that and they have the patience to do those kinds of things.
Some people, it's like he does it all day long.
Yes.
It's and he loves it. He's really good.
So shout out to them, right?
Yeah, but anyway, for sure.
So let's get started. So good afternoon. I have the pleasure of meeting and talking to today Dr. Lynsey Farrell. Lynsey's going to tell you who she is, what her work is all about, but I just want to welcome her to the 2.0 Grandmas podcast, where we are all about things that are for grandmas, about grandmas, and I like to say by a grandma, right? Because everybody's not grandma, and we're a special breed. And Grandmas 2.0 is all about sharing and highlighting the things that grandmas are doing, or people that work with grandmas, the things that they're doing. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Lynsey Farrell. So, Dr. Farrell, tell us about the work that you're doing. But before we jump into that, I really want to find out who you are and then how you got into this work. Was it by chance? Are you a grandma? Just what's going on with you?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. It's really a delight to be here. I am not a grandma. I am the co-founder and executive director of the Grandmother Collective, which has been around for about 2.5 years. And I guess we're going to get into that a little bit more later. Yes. But my background, I'm a cultural anthropologist, and I did the bulk of my field work and professional sort of direction focused on youth in urban Africa. Yeah, so the trajectory is not clear how I ended up co-founding and directing the Grandmother Collective from this early stage passion and enthusiasm for understanding and supporting young people in sub-Saharan Africa. But I think I've always been, somebody that's really interested in the life pathway and the life course and the various ways in which we as humans move through that and what the sort of the social relations and social roles that we play within it. Mm-hmm. I'm blessed. I was raised in suburban Phoenix. Mm-hmm. So like very much grew up in cookie cutter neighborhoods and, had a pretty blessed and happy childhood. And my parents raised us in community for sure. Like we were raised, they themselves founded a community theater. And that I think, that connected me with this idea that we were supposed to be working together, like that's something that should be happening. And I think I've always been sort of looking for community work or looking at just the ways in which, we work together in society, whether that's Africa or in other places at this point. Yeah.
Right. So why grandma? So you said it was all about youth, right? Sounds like it was kind of like youth development.
Yeah.
Right? But why grandmas?
Yeah, so the Grandmother Collective actually emerged out of a relationship that was built between me and my co-founder when we were sitting on the board of an organization called the Grandmother Project. It's based in Senegal. In fact, you should interview her.
Yes,
just been thinking
the Grandmother Project.
The Grandmother Project in Senegal. And the woman who runs it, Dr. Judy Abel, has worked in international development and public health and was specifically looking to solve the challenge in southern Senegal, where you adolescent girls and young people are still navigating some things that at this point in time we would call harmful cultural practices. Things like female genital cutting, early enforced marriage, arranged marriages when you're very, very young. And what she knew and what a lot of international development organizations were doing was coming into the southern Senegalese culture and separating the girls out and giving them empowerment talks and encouraging them and teaching them about finance and doing all the things that you think would then create independence for a young woman. But in that context, they were still heavily influenced by the men, their fathers, the elders, and the grandmothers. And the grandmothers are being ignored, even though they're so highly significant and important for, how a young girl is able to come into society. Mm-hmm. And so Judy started to bring grandmothers in. she treated them as the experts that they are on the culture that they know.
Mm-hmm.
She treated them with respect. She reminded them how powerful they were. And she
Oh,
started to inform them and educate them and share with them, about basic human rights or about things that, have them start to think, yeah, maybe we don't need to do these things anymore. And the results have really been powerful.
hey, Judy is my better half.
Yeah.
What's her last name? Dr.
Abel,
Judy who?
Aubel, Aubel.
Aubel. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah, she
Because
lives in Italy most of the time, but she goes to
uh-huh.
Senegal all the time. And she's from Indiana,
Oh wow.
but
So
she's
that's
mostly
very
lived
similar.
abroad. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's very similar to my movement with Grandma's 2.0. The
Mm,
2.0 is about like the next version of yourself, the better, the more advanced version. You know how we have with the technology, it's like
mm-hmm.
the 2.0, it's the 1.0, the 2.0, and then now we up to what, iPhone 15 or 1,000 or something. But
Yeah.
each time it's better and better,
Yeah.
right? And it's kind of demystifying and throwing away and really dispelling those myths about grandmas when they, women when they reach a certain age that they're
Mm-hmm.
no longer seeing, we're invisible.
Right.
But there's a lot of them out there that are doing some phenomenal things. So I have to meet her. So thank you for sharing.
Yes. So,
Please, thank you.
so the emergence, so from youth to grandmothers, right, is that it's a challenge of age segregation. I don't know if
Hmm.
you know Mark Friedman's work, and he from
Oh yes,
Co-Generate Encore, and he talks a lot about this, like, we are so age segregated. We used to be, in community with each other across generations, and we're so age segregated. And what that has also meant is that programming and funding and all of these things
Mhm.
is not for the kinds of work that integrates grandmothers powerful with youth, right? And it was
Mhm.
honestly, for me, it was like being knocked over the head, because I had done all this research
Mhm.
in a big urban informal settlement in Nairobi with youth, and money was just being thrown at young people, and it was not so much was not designed with the community in mind,
Mhm.
and that does not lead to, everyone emerging together and shifting together and changing together. And yeah, so we are now at the Grandmother Collective, recognizing that, what Judy had seen in this place where she's doing lots of incredible work and research to prove the evidence that grandmothers, have these abilities and need to be included, that this was global, that
Yes.
it doesn't really matter where you are in the world. For the most part, grandmothers or older women, postmenopausal women, have an ability to speak truth to power, to shame in a way that can lead to change, to they lead differently. The older women leadership is very empathetic or
Yeah,
empathic,
nurturing even.
nurturing,
Yes.
like
Mhm.
things that, like, truthfully, for us, feels important to elevate and to put shine a light on and to
Mhm.
focus on and to try to, push and enable more people to see. So that's that's the formation of the collective, because
Mhm.
youth are still part of it. Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's still for the future.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. And hoping that somehow through this integration, this connection changes, youth will embrace some of the things that grandmas are saying and maybe change the trajectory of their lives, hopefully.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
so,
interesting. I mean, my just one more thing. My co-founder Jen,
mhm,
she often frames it as this is the generation, the greatest no, we're not the silent and the boomers, right? Silent generation, boomers, that's US terms for generations. But when those generations are gone, it'll be the last generation that remembers a time before the internet,
mhm,
remembers tech, like pre-technology, this, not that it was a simpler time, honestly, we know it wasn't, but that there's something special that will be lost. And we want to make sure that we pay attention to it.
Okay, that's interesting because, and part of my mission is bringing grandmas who are not tech savvy to become a little bit more tech literate,
Yeah.
because that is a way to stay connected to their grandchildren. Because my husband and I were talking about just yesterday, as a matter of fact, these kids don't pick up the phone. They, to call you, they pick up the phone to text you, but they do not call you. So we've lost that, sitting at my grandma's feet, kind of thing, hanging out with my grandma just because, maybe my mama left me there so she could go somewhere and do something, but still I had that chance to interact with my grandma and learn about so many things that maybe my mom never said or my dad never told me about, but she knew because she grew up, and those are the kind of things that, like, I remember as a kid being around my grandma, my great grandma, when she stayed with us one time. It was so funny. She kept us laughing. And it wasn't that she was trying to make us laugh. It was just that, because she was a grandma, I guess we thought it was funny. And the things she said, and she did, like you said, she told cold hard truth. As the kids say now, fact. Okay, it was fact. And so it was just so amazing to have had that relationship with her, and still remember those things.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it is a gift. And I think this generation, you're right. If we don't spend that time to interact with them, if that opportunity is missed, they're missing out on quite a bit, And one of the things that I say to my own children is, these early years are so important, and I want to make sure that I know my grandchildren from the early years, because we know that based on Erickson's stages of psychosocial stages of development, when they get to be teenagers and preteens, it's like peers are the ones that matter. You other people that maybe raised me and clothed me and fed me and loved me, I don't even care about y'all. You're not important to me anymore. So those early years are so critical to the relationship, because then you have a foundation to build on, and then you can forgive. My mother is probably not there yet in that stage of her life, because she says, these kids don't call me, and they used to stay in there, and they used to run up and down my hall, and we used to have so much fun. I said, yeah, but you got to remember they're at a different stage now. So, but guess what? They will come back and they will honor you, but right now they're more interested in their peers. So you have to kind of respect that, and you have to kind of meet them halfway. I don't know if you ever visited my site, but I did an interview and saw it in my podcast. But I did an interview with the what is her name? I can't think of her name. Jerry Witowski and I think it's Shana. But they wrote a book about where two worlds meet. And the two worlds they were talking about were like your teenagers and grandparents, and about giving us strategies and ways to connect with them. And it was a beautiful, beautiful book. I wanted to do a kind of a book club discussion around it, right? Because I thought it was so important. I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 teenagers right now, one that's 20, and grandchildren, 4 teenagers, one that's 11 and one that's 2. And so in that, most of them are teenagers right now. And so the things we talk about, I have to be very intentional about connecting with them, because if I didn't, the only thing that we would talk about is, oh, grandma, can you send me some money? Can you cash at me? Can you, those kinds of things. If it were not for that, if I was not intentionally trying to talk to them, I probably wouldn't talk to them much. And that's what I was trying to get my mom to understand. You gotta, call them. But remember, they're not on the phone that much. They're texting. So you need to learn how to text if you want. There's some things that we have to do as well. And with the book, it says you got to meet them halfway.
But so what we're needing to learn, I think, is how to ensure that everyone at every stage of life recognizes the importance of the interaction with everyone else in every other stage of life. Like it really is It really matters. But there is something to a skip generation, right? So I sometimes tell this story. There's a ethnic group in Kenya called the Kikuyu. It's the largest ethnic group in Kenya where I used to live. And the Kikuyu, they have a naming system. So you name your firstborn son after the paternal grandfather.
Okay.
And you name your firstborn daughter after the maternal grandmother. Or paternal grandmother. And then you go to the maternal side and you switch back and forth.
Oh, wow.
You name your children. Well, the firstborn grandson and the grandfather on the father's side have a relationship where they're almost equals. So there's still respect, but they like joke with each other and kid around and play. And that's not the relationship that the son has with the father, which is more, formal or more like a bit more
almost like a business.
Kind of like formal, just more like disciplined, right? But with your namesake grandfather, with the person that you're named after, like he will even like call you, funny names and like you guys.
Well, that's interesting.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, that's very interesting.
So there is like and you see this, there's examples of this in other parts of the world too. And you see this and there's something really significant about building relationships with that. And, it looks different for everyone. And I always ask people like, what did it feel like to become a grandmother for the first time? And you hear joyfulness and it's a shift in their status. Like there's a real change for you and like who you see yourself as. Like motherhood is one thing, but grandmotherhood
is totally different. Yes.
Totally amazing.
Now, in America and the people that I've interviewed, so I don't know if you know this about me. I've written a couple of books and in the books I've interviewed grandmas, right? And I would say, and all in all, I've done about 50 grandmas to date that I've published. Now, I'm still interviewing grandmas, but we're not published for the third book yet. But what's so interesting is I find that in America, most of the grandmas that I interviewed, I said, so how did you feel when you became a grandma? That same question. And they say, girl, I was upset. I didn't want to be a grandma. America, we are different here.
But what have we done to that? Like, what have we done?
You know why? It's the socialization of women. When you get a certain age, we don't see you anymore. It's all those things that the reason why I started this organization is because, see us, we are outside, right? We are visible. But in America, if you're not young, thin, and I dare say blonde, you're not seen.
Yeah.
And so that's something that women have to fight all the time. And because of that, we don't want to age. We're like, oh, no, I'm not. So, and we have a stigma. There's a stigma that's attached to that. And that's why most of these women have said, well, I wasn't ready. I didn't want to be a grandma. I was only, and they'll give me whatever their age was at the time. And so, and it is really sad because in other cultures, we know and we read about how the grandmas and the grandpas are so revered in those other cultures. But in America, it's totally different, which is so sad. Now, that's not in all cases, but I'm just saying what I found with the folks that I've been, I'm like, wow, this is a thing that, if I were doing a research project, that would be the thing, right? Yeah. Grandmas don't want to be grandma. Can you please ungrandma me? That sort of thing. But
but at the same time, like they might, I imagine not all of them are saying like they don't love having grandchildren.
No, not now, but in the beginning. The question was in the beginning, how did you feel, when you became a grandma?
Yeah.
Because I want to know, was it a joyous thing or and most of them say, girl, no, I wasn't ready. I didn't want to be a grandma. I'm nobody's grandma.
I'm not ready. Yeah, I'm not
ready yet.
Because we have this idea that you're going to have a curly white head and you're going to use a cane.
You're going to have boobs hanging down to the ground.
Yeah, you're
not going to be fly. No, you're not going to look
Start
good.
wearing like cardigan sweaters. I don't know.
or about moo-moos or something like that. So it's
Yeah.
all these visuals. And now when I
Yeah.
first started Grandma's 2.0, I went online to try to find visuals, right? For,
Mm.
for like to look at, I was thinking about my logos and what kind of things and graphics am I going to, there was nothing out there for grandmas.
Yeah.
They all were decrepit looking women with bad skin, bad with little thinning hair. It's like, wow. But
Mm.
this is what society says about us.
Yeah.
But we're changing the game. But anyway,
Well, I'm with you. We're also on that end. And for
yes.
us, it's that it's not just to create visibility. Not that this is a just for you, but to create visibility in your social circles and to,
Mm-hmm.
give grandmothers more confidence, which they totally 100%
Mm-hmm.
need.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, it is about the fact that they bring to social challenges, community development challenges, such unique perspectives, such
Mm-hmm.
abilities to problem solve.
Mm-hmm.
And they're abundant
Mm-hmm.
and they have time. And it is to us something that really needs to be tapped into in very significant ways. And it starts
Yes.
with recognizing the power of
Yes,
grandmothers.
yes, yes, yes. And so one of the things, another thing in my book is I come up with when I ask these questions. So I call them grandma gems. So
Mm,
these are wisdom. This is wisdom from grandmas because guess what? They've lived the life that you're leading at this point. They can tell you and share with you some things that may prevent you from making some of the mistakes that maybe they made or people around
yeah.
them made. So
Mm-hmm.
this is some very valuable information. So I call it stories of inspiration, life lessons, and wisdom from grandmas.
Mm,
And so, people might think, okay, so it's a grandma, but we don't know. But again, it's the same thing that you're talking about. It's
mm-hmm.
about realizing and helping people to realize how wonderful these folks are because they have this wisdom and they have a different perspective on things.
Mm-hmm.
And they will love to share. Ask them. That's all you got to do is ask them. They would love to share this information with you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I think that's one way that we are similar in the work that we're doing. Not
Oh,
just
yeah.
just the folks that we're doing it with, but what we're
Yeah.
actually doing, and the outcome is that we want people to really respect and honor and acknowledge that grandmas have some very powerful ways of living and powerful ways to share that can
Yeah.
help you in the long run. Definitely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty fascinating. So now your degree is cultural anthropology.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've ever taken it. Have I taken an anthropology
I
class?
don't know. What is your field?
Mine is education.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so I'm a professor and I teach early childhood education.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always loved fashion and things like that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so when I decided to do this work, one of the things that I wanted to do is to think about this from the perspective of self-care and
Mm-hmm.
helping grandmas to really think about who, for example, how to take care of themselves, put themselves first so they could then take care of everyone else. But unless you do that, you won't. So I ground the work that I do in these 8 dimensions of wellness,
Mm-hmm.
and thinking about it from those perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it may be a little different. And yes, it's very self-focused.
Yeah.
But again, I believe that if you don't take care of yourself, you don't have much for anybody else.
Well, I'll tell you, we have, these change-making grandmas, that's what we call them,
Mhm.
who are, driving change in their local communities, and the risk to burnout is very high.
Mhm.
They're retiring from their retirements. Like they've
Mhm.
decided to do these things like, in their older years, that
Mhm.
because they have the time and the skill and the knowledge
Mhm.
and the passion, and then they burn out because they're not
Mhm.
taking care of themselves in the
Right, they're not
process.
taking care of themselves.
So
Yes.
yeah, I think you're 100% right that we, especially, I think maybe Gen Z is teaching us to take care of ourselves. That like
Yes, Gen Z
8 year
is
old,
a totally
like
different
10
group,
year
aren't
old
they?
girls are like doing facials. Maybe that's like a
Yeah.
little too much, but But a lot of us like are having to learn it because it was not
Mm-hmm.
in our culture to do,
To take care of
especially
ourselves.
for women to
Yes,
really think
that's it.
about taking care of themselves. Yeah.
So let's stop here for a minute so that
Okay.
we can take a little break for a commercial. We'll do like a 1 minute break. I'm going to mute myself and we'll stop the video for a second and then we'll come back. And then I have some more questions about are these trainings that you say you train organizations to engage with older women. I really want to know about that. Okay.
Okay.
We'll
Great.
be right back. Thank you. Okay. So now tell me about some of the organizations that you've trained and why did you decide that this was an important issue? Training organizations to work with older women.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we were starting to think about the ways in which we would prove that older women were the powerful people that we thought they were, and they, they really could drive change in local community issues or in social change. Um, we thought about it in a few ways. So we built a membership organization. We went out and found organizations already working in this way. Oftentimes they wouldn't know necessarily that grandmothers were such a significant part of the work that they were
Mhm.
doing, but wouldn't call themselves that. But we started to, just look around and see. And there were actually quite a few organizations already thinking about the ways in which grandmothers are making change and using them and seeing them as assets. And from that, we did a lot of learning, and it enabled us to build blueprints or, models of different ways in which grandmothers are making change in the world, which has now enabled us to go to organizations that are looking to amplify their impact, small local organizations, larger established ones, and are not currently, utilizing or recognizing or bringing grandmothers into the fold. So I'll give you an example. I have two examples that I think are good. So we worked with an organization in Chicago that has been for 100 years thinking about the uh, well-being of children. Really, that's sort of the core.
Mhm.
And how that's manifested in the 21st century is in, mental health support for Chicago public school children, mostly in Black and brown neighborhoods,
Mhm.
mostly lower income, the
Mhm.
south and west sides of Chicago. And the executive director there, I think, when she heard about us, we got connected to a board member. It it sparked something in her. Actually, she talks about like sitting at her grandmother's feet. Like when we talked to her, she says, I have this really clear memory of sitting
Mhm.
on my grandma's porch and just the feeling that you get from that.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
comfort of it, the love from
Yes.
it. It's not even the words she said, right? It's just the feeling.
Mhm.
So that comes out of the executive director over there. So we had a real ally, and we have a training that we call that was inspired a lot from the work at Grandmother Project, which is really about how do you a get grandmothers to self-identify and recognize their agency
Mhm.
as change makers and as people that can do something in their communities.
Mhm. Mhm.
So the training is filled in like, really kind of it doesn't take them long. They go, oh, thank you for seeing me. But, it's
Right.
to remind them. And I think that's actually a lot of what you're doing is reminding them
Yes.
that they are
Reminding them.
this,
Yes.
this thing, like, making it okay to be a grandma, and like that it's
Mhm.
actually a
Yeah.
really
Grandmas are
wonderful,
cool.
what a wonderful period of life.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the second thing is to really help them recognize assets in their community, and that they themselves are the assets. And what can it be? How can they use that? Because they're the ones with such deep knowledge, deep links, deep connections. And then finally, it's kind of presenting all of these different ways and frameworks for how do you make a change in your community. So inspirations from all over the world that we've collected.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Then we hand it over to them, and they figure out what to design themselves.
Mm.
And
For
so
their community.
it's their community. So
Okay.
JPA has, they're drawing from neighborhood kind of leaders and, older women that are powerful in the community. They don't always have grandchildren, but they're like really special and powerful women. Who, by the way, like, once you start thinking about it, you go, oh, yeah, librarians are kind of like grandmothers, like the women at the church. Like,
Yeah,
you just start to see like all these like movers and shakers who are behind the
mm-hmm.
scenes invisibly like making stuff happen. It's not
Mm-hmm.
actually that hard to find them. And then bringing them to actually supplement this like more formal mental health support. And like, I mean, Karen is interesting. It's like, how do you replicate that feeling? Like, how do you, and what's happened is there really aren't as many grandmothers engaged in the day-to-day lives of young people anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
in really in some neighborhoods, they're still working. They've got a lot
Mm-hmm.
of them are raising grandchildren
Raising
again
their
as
grandkids. Yeah.
children, right? And so there's complexities, but being very deliberate about saying you're powerful, you actually know this place better than everybody, and you can design these solutions. And they just start to, it's beautiful. And
Mm.
we did the same. We took this to a totally different community. So we think it's really it's a portable thing. Like it can go
Oh.
anywhere. We took it to Eastern Kentucky, to Central Appalachia, in a very small former coal mine. We had met this woman who runs a community center there, who's amazing and beautiful and awesome woman. She's also a grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, yes, the grandmothers in my community after this historic flood, we did everything. We built the community back up. And it's now at this really critical juncture of coal mines have closed. There's a lot of unemployed people. They're still recovering from this flood. They have an opioid crisis. Like, I mean,
West Virginia. No, you said
it's
Kentucky.
Eastern Kentucky, but like
Yeah.
right along the line is Central
Yeah.
Appalachia.
Mm-hmm.
Same challenges that
Mm-hmm.
West Virginia is
Mm-hmm.
dealing with. And the grandmothers are now, unifying and uniting. They're started talking about grandmother councils and grandmother circles, and like, ways in which grandmothers across the hills can start to rebuild in the aftermath of some really compounding challenges.
Oh my.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really
Beautiful. Yeah.
powerful, really, really powerful.
Yes.
And what we do is we hold the space.
Mm-hmm.
We're just there to say this is important. We're there to amplify it. We're there to give some technical assistance. We're there to, again, like I said at the beginning, build evidence. So, I'm with my researcher hat. I'm really trying to figure out like how are we going to prove that life is better because grandmothers have decided to intervene.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the training program. We're actually also now moving that because that's very, bespoke and intimate, and it's like really, for particular community partners, which we'd love to continue to do because it's going to enable us to see how it plays out in community.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also building an online course platform. And actually in a couple weeks, I'm doing a youth and elders together course, which is
Ah,
focused on the global South, right? Because we are global, even though, these projects have been here in the US. It's focused on the global South. We have heard, so I come from youth. We have
mhm,
heard from youth for years that the older generation really doesn't get us. They don't
mhm.
understand modern life. The way age segregation in Africa works is that the cities are young and the villages are old.
Ah,
So, they're having that sort of cultural challenge.
Flash, yeah.
Yeah, and like that the elders get in their way and they don't let things
Right.
happen, and I mean all the stories you hear. So I'm
Mhm.
looking forward to doing that in a larger cohort and having that conversation and do a training.
Huh, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that I've been not toying with, but one of the things I guess that I've heard, remember I was telling you about that book, When Two Worlds Meet,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to figure out a way to do a book discussion around that and work with the two people, Deanna is her name, Deanna
Mm-hmm.
Shoss and Jerry Witowski, work with them around getting some of my grandmas in my group to really think about this, because that whole separation, that age segregation thing that you're talking about, it's really critical at in the teenage years. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where they live and they focus is on those teenage years. Because we know that at that point, children love their peers more and they don't even talk much to the parents. Nevertheless, the grandparents, if you're on a rung, it's like the peers, the siblings, each other, the parents. Oh, I got a grandma. I didn't even know I had a grandma. I
Mm-hmm.
forgot about her. That sort of thing. So the grandmas or the grandparents are way at the low part of that totem pole, and it's really sad because at that point in your life, when children need more guidance,
Yeah.
is when they just shun the grandparents and they don't engage with them as much. And so, yeah, so I wanted to, I thought about, and we talked to them about some courses and things like that to
Mm-hmm.
kind of help. So it's interesting that you say that because we were kind of toying around and playing around with that idea as well. So let me ask this question. Is there anything else that you want to discuss? You want us to know, you want our audience to know, other than your social media before we get to that, but anything else about the organization,
Mm.
the work that you're doing? I don't know, maybe even, well, how do you see our organizations connecting? Do you see them connecting?
Well, one of the things that we're trying to do and figure out is a way to bring together lots of organizations. So it so we do this in a few ways. We have a monthly meeting for grandmother organizations, grandmothers, folks that are actively, working to make social change in their communities. Uh, it's not like generally way open to the public, but if people email us and are interested, I can add folks to it. We're really thinking about how do we build a community of practice around
Mm-hmm.
this work, because it helps us learn. It kind of becomes our little focus groups, or inspiration for the work we do. The second is that we are always looking for organizations that can help, that want to talk to us or learn from, or I've done talks for a variety of different audiences. It's often, it's like I'm talking to people and they're going, yeah, this is true about me, but no one's ever talked to them about themselves this way. So, I've talked to elder, what do we call those, like senior centers.
Oh, yes.
I've
Yes.
gone to I just taught something with the Osher Lifelong Learning program at Arizona State.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I'm always free for coming and sharing more with an organization. And then finally, we're really trying to think, and so this is where, maybe with 2.0 grandma, we have something to say with each other or do with each other. We really want to host a larger convening about older women and social change.
Oh, yes.
So right now it's sort of maybe going to happen in 9 months to a year. So, down the road. But it would be a convening where we have a lot of grandmas that are, interested in connecting with each other. That there's some panels with experts and folks that are, doing critical things. And anti-ageism is definitely a space for that. And that we would, find a way to kind of, as to our knowledge, there's no one right now building a field around older women and development or social change. So that's the kind of space that we're in.
Yeah. And it's very interesting. I can't remember how I found you. Did I find you through the not grandmother, but the Grand Resources group through
Oh, yes, that's what it was.
Grand Magazine.
Yes, yeah, but okay. I had met with the Grand Life folks.
Okay.
And also the long distance grandparent, Carrie.
Right. Carrie.
Yeah. And then and Christine from Grand Magazine's one of our advisory members as well.
Yes. Yeah. So that's what I thought. I was trying to think that because that was, I really loved what Christine did when she pulled all the folks together.
Yeah.
Because that really opened up my eyes about everyone else that was out there doing this work. And it also solidified for me that my perspective was a little different from most, right? Which was good, a little scary, but good, because you think about grandmas as being fly, right? They think about grandmas as being, sitting on the porch or whatever. So
it needs everyone. It needs all of those perspectives.
Yes, all of those perspectives
to make
multifaceted, right?
What we're really hoping for is a culture shift.
Yes.
And it is, there's a whole, I don't know if you know about this group that's working on elderhood.
No.
Oh, yes. There's a whole group of people.
That group?
It's called Passageways to Elderhood. It's a consortium of different people working in different organizations that are thinking about what would it take to redefine growing old. And in Native
tribe.
Yeah. and like indigenous cultures and in cultures in other parts of the world, you're kind of preparing your whole life to be older. And that actually is sort of the pinnacle of your life, to reach the stage at which now people are coming to you for advice. And you don't have to do the work so much as you now get to be in this mentorship space. Like in other places, age is beautiful.
Yes.
And so it's an American group, this Passageways to Elderhood, but they're really trying to think do we build new rites of passage? Do we, think about teenagers. They're not, in other places, their grandma's coming because there's some specific, there's a quinceañera or there's something in your teenage years that your family comes around you for. And that's really not happening in modern American culture. And so, Passageways to Elderhood is how do we reinsert these rites of passage into things so that it is a life course that we are on, and elderhood is the goal, beautiful elderhood.
Yeah. Okay. I will check them out. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. So right now I want to hear your social media.
Okay.
All those, and then we're going to sign off because I have another guest in a few minutes.
Okay, no problem. So the Grandmother Collective is really active on Instagram and really active on Facebook. We also have a Facebook group called the Grandma Magic Facebook group, which is for grandmothers that that are really interested in connecting with other women. It's part of our goal of a community of practice. They get on there and they share different things they're doing. And again, I also have a podcast called the Grandma Magic Podcast. We are on a little bit of a break, but season 1 is up. You can find it anywhere you get your podcasts, and we'll start again in April.
And I really appreciate you being here today, because I think it's so important that grandmas hear about things that are going on in this world, because sometimes we kind of isolate ourselves because of this societal shame that we're old, right? So and it's so sad that happens, but it's reality. And so I thank you so much for being on today. And again, I just want to say that Grandmas 2.0 is all about redesigning, realigning, and redefining who you are during these grandma years of your life. It can be a beautiful thing. And so we are for grandmas, all about grandmas, and by a grandma. So thank you so much, Dr. Farrell, and it was great talking to you.
You too. Thanks so much.
Take care now. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Introducing a remarkable book, a tapestry of stories from atypical grandmas whose lives are a treasure trove of wisdom and inspiration. Stories of inspiration, life lessons, and wisdom from grandmas by Dr. Marsha McLean. This extraordinary book is now available on www.grandmas2.0.com and on Amazon.